Welcome, and today we're going to explore a little bit of China. And now China is huge. We are going to explore some pyramids in China, some undisclosed pyramids that are really fascinating that nobody ever really seems to talk about. And we're also going to explore some Chinese mummies that are not Chinese. And these Chinese mummies are found here in what's called the Tarim Basin. And the mummies are supposed to be from 1800 BC, but yeah, you know. So this desert where they found the mummies is actually historically the Silk Road, or at least the crossroads for the Silk Road. You know, commerce for this whole region used to pass through this area. Kind of a mecca for the world, really. And very interesting that these days it appears to just be a wasteland, just a complete desert. But more so, I think, a lake bed type of desert, very similar to what we might see in Nevada. Now, if we look here at this old map, for example, it looks as if this region might be it, but I don't think so. I think it's actually more over here. But in any case, what we do see from this old map is a lot of activity. A lot of activity in this area. Just like the northern Siberian region, also activity, where in present day there just isn't. I mean, well, we can see here, this area looks like this. And here we have the Great Tibetan Plateau, just north of the Himalayas here. And it also appears to be an absolute wasteland. Let's jump over here to this pyramid. And this is the first of the Chinese pyramids. Now there are hundreds of pyramids. As you can see, it's such a large country. No doubt. I mean, when you look at this area, this looks like kind of a urban area, somewhat. And one wouldn't even look for pyramids in an area like this. And this is how the pyramids are going to be all over the world. This is a great example of what we have not found and what things look like when they have not been found. They're overgrown. Fortunately, the path of least resistance is the corners, which actually emphasize the pyramids. Now you can see three more here. Another one right here. Perhaps another smaller one right here. And it's a little more difficult to zoom in China. It seems like maybe they have restrictions. For instance, we're not allowed to zoom down to the roads and get the road perspective like we would in, I suppose, more free countries. So now let's look at this larger pyramid over here. And here you can see the coordinates if you want to check this out on your own. The coordinates are right below here. They should show up. And yeah, here's another one. Right in the middle of some fields. And this one, you know, actually they all seem to have the flat top similar to the South American pyramids. But really fascinating that these would be here in plain sight. Now here's a better idea of what these actually look like. And I think it's a crime that this is pretty much kept from humanity. After all, it's our history. This belongs to all of us. Really, really amazing. So not only are we not shown these pyramids, but we're not taught anything about them. We certainly didn't learn about in school, and there are currently no modern explorations or archaeology digs or any such things to get to the bottom of what is really going on with these Chinese pyramids. And if we look closely at older maps, we're reminded that the greater portion of China was Tartaria, as we can see in this map. You have Europe to the west and Grand Tartaria to the east. And now in this particular map, China does exist. There is a portion of it. These pyramids are just fascinating. Located right in major metro areas, or at least not major, but for China, I mean, it's not like they're hidden and completely buried. Many of them do have trees growing on them, and some actually appear to have trees planted on them, right on the pyramid steps themselves, which I think it was probably a cover-up. Maybe one day when the trees grow large and lush, they will cover up the pyramid, but right now it just looks silly. I mean, it just emphasizes the rows that we see. And now this desert where the mummies were found in China is really amazing. I mean, when we look at older maps, this desert, and I'm not sure, you tell me what you think, this desert appears to, at one point, have been a lake. And when we look in present times, you know, this area is a complete wasteland. Here in this old map, we see towns and rivers. It certainly doesn't, it's not depicted as a wasteland. And it's not depicted as being void of people. I mean, we see people from the south to the north. I mean, this is not, I think that it's pretty clear. And yet, when we look on Google Earth, it's not the kind of place you'd want to hang out. In fact, this was historically called the Silk Road, running right through that desert. This here that I'm showing is the Tibetan Plateau. And very interesting how dry and barren this desert is, yet pockets of water everywhere. I mean, could this be the remaining water from, I don't know, from this lake bed? Even the Sahara Desert doesn't seem like it makes any sense. I mean, again, historically we see towns and cities in the Sahara Desert, older maps, as we do here. And so, to me, with all this background, it's not completely surprising that we would turn up ancient people. Ancient people that, from their dress and from their culture, do not appear to be a primitive people whatsoever. And so these mummies were toured all over the world until things became controversial. And, you know, they realized that this is really going to upset the mainstream narrative. Why are these Caucasian mummies found in Asia? But again, it's not unusual. And now we can see that we probably have pyramids like this all over that are undiscovered, especially in mountainous areas and overgrown forested areas. Now Google does not allow us to put the little man on the road here in China, which I think is unfair. And I don't prescribe to any political party. I think they're both greatly flawed. But I'll agree with fairness with China on this issue that we've heard a lot about in the modern political conversation. And if our front doorstep should be available to the world, then I think everybody should be. Now, these pyramids are clearly pyramids. I'd be hard-pressed to find somebody that wouldn't agree that this is a pyramid and not some mound or I don't know. I really don't know what excuse could be given. And these pyramids are in plain sight. Here you see trees have been planted again. Perhaps the side that faces a road so they're even trying to pull the wool over the Chinese eyes, whom these pyramids are right in their backyards. Now here we can see out in the Tarim Basin. You have a lot of areas like this, a lot of ruins. And again, we found similar things in Egypt. Before people began digging, you just had little things poking up here and there. And, back then, people were interested in figuring out their story, it seems. Of course, the Smithsonian was hard at work as well, trying to cover up the real story, but you had more inquisitive minds, and I think back then that's really all you would have. There would have been a lot less distractions. Life was a lot simpler. When it comes to these mummies and pulling this exhibit in modern times, I think it's a great tragedy. I think we really need to, as a people, as a whole, not just as individuals, we need to really investigate these things. And it's amazing in this day and age that we're living in, where it's actually the amateur. This is the age of the amateur, where the amateur will actually discover our past. The amateurs will give us the best footage of space or whatever is up there. The amateur will send up the best rockets. Always the amateur. I would say it's the same thing in the medical community, and I'm not going to go too far, but true healing takes place in what they call alternative realms, and it's unfortunate, and certainly when it comes to our history. Academia, found in universities all throughout the world, that all seem to agree on, I believe, what we consider now to be a lie. And lastly, I wanted to focus on this Tarim Basin desert. And even in this picture, we see what looks like ruins. And the fusion of races, we're told here, are a mix between European, Mongoloid, Mediterranean. So, they give us some sort of explanation. And again, historically, this was the Silk Road, after all, bridging China to Mediterranean, Europe, India. So it shouldn't be surprising that there's a lot more to discover in this area. And, here's an example of what ruins look like, and again, what is buried under that sand. Here's a little bit more of a modern day wondrous something. The purpose we really don't know. It's very beautiful and very intricate. And now again we see roads out there. And yes, okay, they made one road, but the ones on the far extremities, the one poking through the sand, again, very similar to what we see in Nevada. And when we plant, things grow really well here. There is tons of water under here. Again, I come back to the speculation that this may have been that lake shown in ancient or much older maps. And here I'm just going to finish up with the mummies were tattooed, and I didn't show their tattoos, but here's an example of their culture. So that's it. Have a blessed day. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment.